In this episode of the Bitcoin Zodiac, we're joined by Shelby Malachowski, a beautiful soul residing in the bustling city of Chicago with her husband, dog, and 2 cats, who has journeyed from being a dedicated sleep and meditation researcher to a pioneering businesswoman. Her unique path has been illuminated by her creation of numerous guided meditations, mastering quantum NLP, and an impressive 3+ years of experience as a crypto trader and investor. Her entry into the world of astrology at the tender age of 20, during a challenging period of her life, opened new doors of self-discovery and cosmic understanding. Join us as we explore the celestial connections to the realm of cryptocurrency and the near future in this exciting episode with Shelby. All right, welcome Shelby to the Bitcoin Zodiac. We're so excited to have you here. How are you doing today?
Amazing. I'm honored to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. And good morning, Claire, out there in Thailand.
Good morning. Good morning. How are we?
Feeling amazing after this. We just had a new moon in Pisces, so still feeling through all that emotions. But we have so much to dive into today, and we have this incredible guest, Shelby. So maybe Shelby, you want to start off with just sharing with everybody a bit about you and your crypto and astrology journey so far.
Yes. Oh, where do I begin? Well, I'll start from the beginning. I kind of have a very similar path of Corrine, where I was in science and STEM growing up. I was studying biology in college. I was fascinated with the human body, the mind, consciousness. I later thought, oh, I wanted to go into medical school, but quickly realized that that's not something that really pushed me the way that I wanted to be pushed. I don't like to be pushed. I like to have the flow, and I felt pushed in that path. So I decided to go into research, and I started doing sleep and meditation research. I quickly realized, on top of doing yoga every day and starting to meditate through yoga, how powerful this practice was. So I began that when I was probably around like 20 or so. And so from the age of 20, I've been, meditating, doing yoga, on the path of research, meeting with different clients of research. I lived in Chicago at the time, so I was meeting with a lot of people in research studies. I was in studies on the west side of Chicago, and also doing meditation research with cancer patients. So it was a really fascinating field to be in. But I realized, again, I don't really like research. I like this topic, but something else is for me. That's when I started to kind of pivot into business and find a way to get into the business sector through understanding more about how I can actually provide a service through my meditation skills, being able to guide people into meditation. I started recording them and putting them on Insight Timer. I
Which I
started
will
to
add, Shelby's guided meditations are the most soothing,
Oh,
beautiful voice, and she has an incredible
thank you.
voice, so I highly recommend.
I love
Yeah,
it.
that's so
It's
good.
it's so fun. It's honestly like such a blessing to be able to guide people in that way, and the responses I get back and how it supports people. It's just amazing. But yeah, I got into that sector, and I realized this is what I really want to do. And I also, as I was learning how to guide people more and craft my skill with understanding how to kind of use audio technology, I started to also get into neurolinguistic programming. And neurolinguistic programming was a huge, huge catalyst in my own journey for helping me get past a lot of blocks that I had, a lot of like subconscious fears that I had. I worked with mentors in that space who really like leveled up my understanding of what I even am, how my mind works, how the brain works. And that's when I started meeting with more clients at psychedelic integration and doing meditation with them and bringing NLP in. That led me to then finding a lot of people who it kind of introduced me to the whole crypto and investing space. One of them is a shaman. I don't know if you guys know his name. His name is Christoph Melchizedek, and he's based out of Australia. And I joined his crypto circle, and he was talking about Bitcoin and this revolutionary technology, and he was giving people guidance on, how to get into this space and how to long-term invest. And I was just blown away and fascinated. And I just like wanted to know so much. And that's when I started investing probably around 2000, like it must have been 2019, 2020, I believe. And then maybe a couple of weeks later is when I joined into IML, where Corrine and I met eventually. I'm not there anymore, but I do still have a lot of amazing connections with people there. And currently just focused on guiding people in meditation, doing digital content, investing, trading, diving more into my own astrology. And the way astrology kind of tied, I'll go back to astrology for this. Astrology came into my life when I was like 20 years old. And it came from this guy. He has this really like funny little small bookstore in Michigan where I grew up. And he's kind of like this kooky guy. And I went in there one day and I was like, let me find some fun books to read. You know, it was summertime, I was home. And I realized that he just immediately connected with me. He's like, you're supposed to know astrology. He like read my chart. He read me like a book. It was almost terrifying how much he could understand who I was just by looking at my chart. And I was like, tell me more. Like, I need books. What do you know about this? And that's how it all started for me. And I've just continuously kept up with understanding my own chart. Throughout the years, as my sisters have had babies, I give them little like readings of like what their baby's charts are and other people's charts, but I kind of just do it as just a labor of love. I don't consider myself an astrologer, but I just love astrology. I love what it is.
That's so beautiful how you just have all these different things in life that eventually piece together and you can start to play with them and put them all together. And one thing that I really love about you is just the whole spiritual side and how you find how like you have understood how important the spiritual side is to your trading and investing journey. And that's just one thing that I really, really love about you. So shall we already dive into some of the things that you're seeing with crypto right now and where we're headed?
Yeah,
Well, I think it's also interesting as well to find out like what I find it so fascinating that you found out about crypto from a shaman. Like this is this is really a different way of entering crypto. And what was your first sort of like intuition when you heard about Bitcoin, when you heard about what Bitcoin was? Like what was that first like intuitive hit, if you will?
Yeah. You know, I have to go back because while I learned from the shaman, I'd heard about it in college from a
Okay.
friend of a friend who was using Bitcoin for things that they probably should not have been using them for. So I kind of just waved it off. But I think the intuitive hit came for me was when it really was when the pandemic started. Something in my body felt off. I was like, the way this is all unfolding doesn't feel fully right to me. And I didn't know how to put words into it, but I knew there was a deeper meaning behind what was going on. And when I saw the financial markets start to drop the way that they did, and I saw that Bitcoin had gotten to like a really, really big low, and then it started to move its way back up. I was like, why did it do that? Why did this major moment that honestly has never happened in the history of humanity to this extent? I mean, it's happened before, but we've never been able to look at it through the lens of social media and everyone see what everyone's going through. So I think that's the catalyst that kind of made me be like, what is going on here? And it kind of made me feel like I'm supposed to learn about this. I don't know why, but I am. And Christoph came to me through Reagan Hillier, who was at the time my coaches, my NLP trainer, Noelle Agape's like her mentor. So like we were all somehow connected. And she had this webinar one day where she sent out an email just saying, curious about crypto. And I was like, yes, I am. I'm going to attend this webinar. And that's where I met Christoph and I saw his, like what he was teaching about, and the lens he was teaching it through was not anything I'd seen anyone do it from before. So I think his perspective also kind of drew my interest in, because he was going at it from like a global standpoint, like money is evolving before our very eyes. So that was interesting to me.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So fascinating. So
It,
yeah, let's get into it. What are you seeing coming up? I know that you're also, like Corinne and I, a deep lover and analyzer of the generational cycles and these sort of slower moving planets. What do you sort of see unfolding?
Mhm. You're asking me or Corinne?
You.
Me? Okay,
yeah,
just want to make sure.
girl, guys. They hear us blabber.
I can ask Corinne anytime.
Yeah, so I don't know, we're at an interesting point. Like Bitcoin, I look at the chart of Bitcoin right now and it's at 72,133. And we all knew this moment was going to come. We all know that it's going to keep going. The question is it going to keep going from here, or are we going to see a pullback first and then it's going to keep going? So I'm kind of in the place where I'm riding this wave right now of the emotion. I'm not trying to like invest in anything specifically right now. Those little smaller coins are really fascinating to watch at the moment. That's what I've been kind of diving into. Um, but I'm curious to see like what comes April 22nd with this happening, and then it's also the eclipse period. So I don't know, you guys look back at the eclipse like data on charts for Bitcoin, and it's just massive volatility. So it's like the question of, is this favorable for Bitcoin? And I want to look a little bit more into like the aspects of how the planets are actually transiting during that time of the eclipse. But I'm wondering, and I haven't done this quite yet, I haven't looked at the specifics, but is it favorable aspects where it's transiting, or is it not? And are we going to see a massive pullback before this happening and then an even greater push forward? So I think we're all kind of like at a place where we're like excited and happy and like, woo, go Bitcoin. Like we've been waiting for this, but we're also kind of like, are you gonna keep going? Like, you're gonna keep
That is
pushing
the move.
through, or are you gonna pull back? And then that's an even better entry for us who are looking for those re-entries.
Yeah, what's actually so
Absolutely.
interesting around that time period, specifically on the 20th of April, is this Jupiter conjunct to Uranus that we have. That's not specific to Bitcoin, but just in general. So, I love to look at that because obviously we have Jupiter,
Yeah,
the planet of expansion and abundance,
expansion.
conjunct with this planet that, especially in financial astrology, we see just create these massive, what feels like out of the blue movements. And this is happening right
Yes.
after the eclipses that we have coming up prior to that. It's like it's just really, really interesting astrology that we have coming up around that time. So,
Yeah.
and
I
it's
feel like it's going to be more, I do feel like we're going to see some disruption or some kind of like black swan, gray swan, quote unquote, probably more in the traditional markets. And so where I'm sort of sitting
Mhm.
and meditating on this is like how does Bitcoin respond to this? Because
Mhm.
we see it go both ways, that we really are now moving into this space, which is so exciting, that Bitcoin's almost seen as this safe haven, which like, I mean,
Yeah.
even in the last cycle, it was so tied to the NASDAQ, it was risk on, and a lot of people do still consider it risk on, of course, but more and more people are starting to see its safe haven properties. And so it's always like, if something scary happens in the real world, quote unquote, does that drive Bitcoin's price up, or does everybody freak out like at the beginning of COVID and sell everything?
Yeah.
And we see a big dip. So it's sort of like interesting to see how those sorts of things play out, I think.
Mhm. Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah. I definitely think it's also, I've been seeing people share a lot of like, I think there's people who are in fear right now, and there's people
Mm.
who are in a place of trust and they're optimistic and they're not being pessimistic. So battling those like two sides right now of duality, it's interesting to witness people who are in this market who are like no, it can't, this can't go on forever. It's going to drop. There's going to be some event. I was reading some of the other day saying the new moon's coming up in Pisces, we could see a pullback there, and we haven't quite yet. And in fact, it went a little higher today. So I think it's just in this place where it's like, it's making up its own mind right now. I feel like it's moving in a way that people aren't quite ready for, understand. They're like waiting for that pullback. And I don't really feel like it's going to come when people think that it will. I think it's going to keep moving and keep moving and keep moving. And that train's going to go. And then more people are going to be like, oh crap, I need to get into this now. And then that's when the pullback will come.
Agree.
Yeah.
I fully agree. And, actually now next episode of the Bitcoin Zodiac, we're going in depth in eclipses and what we have coming up for these eclipses. And there's some really, really interesting stuff that's coming up for that. I want to dive a little bit deeper and pick your brain on your thoughts around kind of tying back to what Claire said about the transformational planets. And when we were talking before, there was something about Planet 9 and it's like playing in my head. So I want to hear more about that and what you're seeing, and just share with us all that info.
Yeah. Oh, where do I begin? Well, first I'll just say that the outer planets are so fascinating to study, not only at an individual level, but at a collective level, because they move slower, right? They move in bigger year spans and cycles, so they're going to affect us generationally. And sometimes there's planets like Pluto that obviously move in 250-year cycles. That's not just generationally, that's like a few generations have gone by before Pluto comes back to the place where it was, like we see in America in July 4th, 1776. So I think it's really fascinating to like witness these moments, like at least in our lifetime, where we're seeing this unfold and these planets are coming back around to these cycles. And it's like, ooh, well, this is what happened last time. So let's see what happens this time. We're not saying it's going to be the same, but there might be similar energies. So for me, I love studying the planets like Pluto, right? The planet of destruction and death and rebirth. And it's since I'm a Scorpio, I love Pluto. Like I love learning about Pluto. But then I realized me and Kylie, or one of our friends, Kylie, who's an astrologer, we went to the planetarium here in Chicago where I am. And my mind was just blown by this video where it's kind of like a documentary they have where you can go around the museum, then they have videos and documentaries you can buy. And we're sitting there and we're watching this documentary about Planet 9, which everyone believes Planet 9 to be Pluto, right? Like that is Planet 9 is Pluto, right? But they went beyond Pluto. They're like, we now have technology to understand what's going on beyond Pluto, which previous generations did not have access to. So they basically made this amazing, like 3D rendered visualization. And I love visualization through closing my eyes, but this was just unbelievable seeing it in person. And it's a visualization of all the planets moving around, and they just keep zooming out and they're showing the orbits of all of these planets that are moving around Earth and the sun and the moon. And then there's the Kuiper Belt objects outside of Pluto, right? So we have our sun, we have the Earth, we have all these other planets that go out that are further and further away from Earth. We have Pluto and then the dwarf planets. And within this like Kuiper Belt of objects, they're starting to discover, because they have the technology to capture these images with these telescopes, they're capturing these planets that are moving on the outer Kuiper Belt. And they're starting to realize that these planets are moving and they have their own cycle and rotation. So we're starting to realize that there's even more planets like further and further away from Earth that could potentially have some sort of impact astrologically on us, like Haumea, like Sedna. These are two planets that a lot of astrologers have been like diving into and looking into a little bit more. Haumea is it's so interesting. If you look up the picture of Haumea, it looks like a planet that's just kind of been like smushed. because it's orbiting, and for some reason there's another like moon or something. I think it has a couple moons near it, but for some reason the gravitational pull of some of the moons causes it to be smushed. So it's like rotating like this little like weird like smushed planet, which I thought was really cool. And Haumea is connected to the goddess of fertility and childbirth in Hawaiian mythology. And so part of what I'm trying to do is learn a little bit more about this. I've only known what I've heard from astrologers in this documentary, but I'm like really, really interested in how Haumea has potentially orbited and what they're starting to find about its orbit. Because if it orbits anywhere similar to, let's say, the 250-year cycle of Pluto, let's say it might be a little bit more, maybe 400 years or 500 years, how could that impact what we've seen in terms of the technology advancement of childbirth, with birth control, IVF, all of these things now that are starting to be put into, what's the word I could think of? There are people on this earth who don't want that to evolve, right? There are people on this earth who are trying to take away these new technologies when it comes to childbirth. So I'm trying to see if there's any sort of connection between those two. And like, I'm going to do a little bit more deeper diving. And then the other planet, Sedna, is another dwarf planet, which is also on the outer Kuiper belt. And they're also seeing that Sedna is having some sort of impact as well, because they're seeing it move. They look at the velocity of the planet, they like capture these images over a period of time, and they're seeing the planet move in a certain way, showing that it also has a certain cycle range. So they're starting to collect that data over a period of time to like figure out how fast it's moving and how fast its cycle might be. So Sedna might also be the same thing. It also might be related to like maybe a 400 to 700 year cycle, maybe in that range. And so Sedna is named after the Greek god, or not, it's not Greek. I think it's I don't know if it's a Greek goddess, but I know the story of Sedna, it is a myth story. So I'll have to look into like the specific area of the world it came from. But Sedna was basically like stolen away by this like evil guy who like took her as a bride. And her father went to go save her. And her father, on the way back, he saved her. They're going across the seas on this boat, and the storm comes, and her father like throws her overboard to try and save himself, and she tries to like grab onto the boat, and he like chops her fingers off, and she like goes down to the bottom of the ocean, and she's now this like goddess who's associated with the depths of the ocean, right? The subconscious, the water element, and also very like Neptunian energy too. So it's really interesting to see how these mythologies like kind of correlate with what we're also seeing like right now in our world with obviously childbirth. There's a lot going into that with people being against certain birth control, IVF, things like that, as well as women choosing not to have kids, women deciding, I don't want this. And that's the first time in a while there's been generations who have done this in such a mass scale, especially when we're seeing childbirth rates decline. So that on top of the Sedna story with, you know, just how that woman was just like basically just her father and the guy who stole her away, she just didn't have a good relationship with the masculine. So that brings up a lot of themes around how feminine energy and women in today's age are treated by men, and how that's on such a grand scale right now, how the men in our world treat women on so many levels. Like I've talked to women here in Chicago. There's women who are scared to go out during certain parts of the day. They're fearing for their lives, and that shouldn't have to be the case. You shouldn't have to worry about that. So those themes are like so prevalent right now in like the social issues that we're dealing with. So I think it's so fascinating how more and more is coming out about Haumea and Sedna as this unfolds.
That is so interesting because, yeah, like I would really love to know exactly at what point they are in their orbit, because I mean, we are seeing so many of the outer planets moving, we were like Pluto, you know, that only happens every 248.5 years, and it's happening right now. And the themes around Pluto, which we talk about a fair few times here on the Bitcoin Zodiac, are so predominant, and seeing these coming up as well. I'd love to see if they're been moving too. And I feel, and I know you ladies both feel, and many people that I talk to just feel like right now we are seeing such a historical time where there is so many shifts and changes in so many different layers of life and of living here on this earth. So that's so interesting. Who would have thought that there's more beyond Pluto? I mean, we know that there's more beyond Pluto, but to have it like literally orbiting in our same solar system that obviously plays various roles on Earth is fascinating. And I'm just going to say, I feel like as we talk about like the feminine, which I want to specify like feminine energy, which no matter your biological gender, you know, we have the feminine and the masculine energy inside of us. We see such a predominant rise in that. And, you know, one of the girls that I educate with, we always love to say that we believe that Bitcoin is feminine. We're seeing the rise of Bitcoin, the rise of crypto, and just the rise of spirituality too. So yeah.
Amazing.
I love the Greek mythology. I love the mythology of around the naming of the planets and this sort of ancestry almost of the planets. It really gives a different flavor and a different depth of understanding. And I also think it's very interesting because we are at a time in history as well for many countries where not only the birth rates are incredibly low, but also fertility rates. People are actually like kind of struggling with fertility and those sorts of things. So that's a really sort of interesting tie-in. I'm going to dig deeper into this as well, because that's definitely something that I've noticed as well, just looking at, you know, my kind of hobby of macroeconomics, I guess, is looking at the demographics. And there's certain countries, I mean, Japan's birth rate is so low. And they really are struggling with fertility as well. It's not just by choice, but so that's a really fascinating cycle to sort of to look at and see how that kind of ties in. So that's awesome. Thanks for bringing that to our attention too.
Of course. And it's also fascinating to think about like how long humans have been here for, and how we as women are these vessels through which life comes onto this world. And that's such a huge power to hold. And so when we start to see these birth rates decline, right, not only in just one country, but across all of them, and then we see technologies that are bringing women together so that they can learn from each other, share their stories, share about their birth experiences, share about you know, something they experienced in a hospital, share about what their sister or mom went through, share about not wanting to have children and their child-free, you know, experience. I think it's fascinating because no women before have ever been able to be so connected to each other in this way. So I don't think I feel like it's all connected in terms of how this technology is growing and how it's supporting us. But that you like can't forget that part. That's like we're all connected in ways we've never been connected before. And I think women are
even
starting
just
to
on the
realize
Zoom.
that. I know, exactly.
You know, on the Zoom. We're in different parts of the world and you guys are in different parts of America. And I definitely want to dive deeper on that topic with you as well, because I think we share a similar sort of perspective of how do you see technology, the evolution and expansion of technology. How do you see that tying into the collective consciousness and raising the collective consciousness? And also, obviously, what do you see as some dangers as well in that space too?
Yeah, that's a great question. The first thing that comes to mind is we need more balance Yeah, like I feel this message coming in. There's just more balance needed with this new technology, because while it's amazing and beneficial and providing us with ways to automate our life and improve our life and make things more efficient, it's also taking away one of our most precious things that we have, which is just being present in the present moment with people. And sometimes I think people forget how much they're like entwined with this technology, and like how much we use it for everyday life. And I actually brought this up to my husband there. I was like, what do you think about like us doing one day where we just do no technology, like just to see like how much this actually impacts our lives? Because like we use our phones, we use our car, we use everything to get places, we use social media, we use Zoom, we use all this stuff. So what's a day without it? Just none at all. And I think that's something a lot of people, I think it would benefit them if they went back to that and had that balance, while also having those days where they are working and they are, using their computer and they're using their cars. But I think that it's a beautiful thing. But just like water, if you drink 10 gallons of water, you can die. Water is great for you, but you shouldn't drink 10 gallons of it, right? So just that moderation, I think, will be really important. Now everyone's going to have a different like level of dealing with moderation. I think technology can also be an addiction, and that ties into like how it's impacting our dopamine levels and how people can do work to heal their dopamine. So I think it's so nuanced and there's so many levels. But I think a part of that comes from like, number one, having awareness and really taking stock of, what do I use this technology for? Is it for good? Is it for bad? What am I consuming on this technology? Is it something that's helping me learn and grow? Or is it something that's just like kind of sucking my energy away and not really providing any sort of value to help me grow as a person while I'm here on this earth? So I think people have to get to that place of awareness first. If they're not in awareness, I don't think they're going to do anything to change their relationship with this technology as it continues to grow, like AI and social media. There just has to be more clear boundaries. But some people, I don't think they want boundaries. I think they're so addicted to it that they can't see it. They can't see life without that technology. You know what I mean? Like it's become a part of them and they have to learn to separate it a little bit more.
Yeah. And I mean, I feel like from what I've learned and from my research, like a big part of that you touched on is the dopamine. Like that's the addiction point, or that's the one of the key addiction points, especially social media. Getting that instant gratification, and that dopamine just goes off in your brain, and you feel like you can't step away. And I was just listening the other day to Dr. Joe Dispenza, which I'm sure you're familiar with. And he was talking about treating the brain like an animal, or the body like an animal. And then there's that part of your brain, which we go to through meditation, that allows us to discipline the animal. And, I love listening to him talk about meditation and how meditation is a key tool to separate us from, well, not really separate us, but create that discipline around things such as us using technology in balance. So how do you use meditation, and how does that help you and, the followers that you have as well through your guided meditations to help people create that balance with technology?
Yeah, it's interesting because with meditation, when I started, I didn't use any form of technology to start meditating. I just kind of sat with myself I started with a minute, and I would set a timer, or I would just like see how long I could hold it and then like open my eyes. But eventually I started using Insight Timer as a tool, right, to assist to go deeper. And so I think when it comes to like how I've used it now versus back then, it's very different. But I think it's a great tool when you have a platform that can provide like guided meditations and education and teaching people with amazing teachers from all over the world. That I don't think you can get by just sitting with your own thoughts right away. Maybe some people can tap into it, but not everyone. So having that guidance can be helpful. And I think having a phone and an app that you can download, it works as a great tool to get you kind of kick started on that path. But I love sometimes just like going out and not bringing my phone and just sitting in the grass with the sun hitting my face and just closing my eyes until I'm ready to open them. Um, it could be 10 minutes, it could be 30. Like, I don't really know. Some days I go really long. I'm like, whoa, the time has gone by. Like time's like not real to me in a sense. It's I don't want to dive deep into that, but basically you lose sense of time, right? When you meditate and you forget about the fact that there is even time. And so you basically bring yourself into this state where, like you said, you calm your nervous system, you forget about the outside world, and you get to go in and figure out what's going on within me. What aches or pains do I have? What thoughts are coming up? And just observing everything. I think that's a beautiful thing that you could do without technology, which is good to have it, but it's also, you don't necessarily need it to do meditation, but it can definitely assist you in becoming more aware and providing different tools and techniques and practices to like advance your practice as a meditator. Hopefully that makes sense.
That's really like that dance there, right? Between the use of technology and not the use of technology, but how much good technology can bring when it's used in a way that helps you to develop certain skills and get connected with a community. I mean, we talk about that a lot here, and we love looking at the positive side of technology and what technology and artificial intelligence can definitely bring us. There's always a shadow to everything.
Yeah.
But I love to focus on as much of the light as possible.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing.
I think it's like everything as well in this world that we can kind of become addicted to anything, really. And I think we're at the sort of root of addictive or compulsive behavior, or sort of programmed behavior, is really this disconnection with ourselves and with the divine. So it's like, I feel like in my personal life anyway, I'm not sure if this resonates with you too, that it's really about focusing more on that connection with the divine. And then I find it easier to navigate the waters of all of these new technologies, and, you know, even just consumerism or food or content or anything like that. And so it's like, if you're using technology, especially with like apps like Insight Timer, I mean, the good that has brought to people's lives is really pretty phenomenal, you know. All throughout the world, people are listening to meditations and getting more connected to themselves and to the divine through these apps. So I think that that's just such an interesting combo. So tell us a little bit about some of the meditations that you have on Insight Timer, because I've done a couple of them and they're so beautiful. And so I'm excited for our listeners to also jump into them.
Yes. Oh my God. Well, where do I begin? Because Insight Timer holds such a special place in my heart. I think the first one I ever created on there was a sleep meditation where I kind of guided people into sleep. Sleep is such an important part of life. I love sleep. Oh my God. I've always loved sleep. Like, yeah, I was the kid that would sleep 11 hours and just like be so cozy and happy, like sleeping for 11 hours. So for me, teaching people sleep was kind of how I first started. And then I started to dive into learning more about money as energy and teaching those concepts. And it's interesting. A lot of the meditations that I create or I bring into the world I kind of just like remain open. I'm like, all right, what is supposed to be put out to the world next? Like, what do people need most right now? Um, and how can I be the one to guide them or create that space at least so that they can come to that space and feel what it is that they need to feel. So each meditation is different. You know, I have ones where we're diving into divine waters and releasing blocks to abundance. I have a course where I dive into the spiritual side of currency and how money's evolved from, you know, bartering to coins to paper and now digital currency. And also going into topics like how to see money as a relationship. Most people don't see it that way. You know, how to heal that relationship. A lot of practices I think that people don't necessarily learn growing up, and ones that I've learned along my path that have really, really supported me. So I bring a lot of those practices in that people can bring in daily, as well as NLP concepts. So I love my morning affirmations. The first thing I do when I wake up is I turn, well, my phone's in the other room, and this helps me not like stare at my phone when I first wake up. But we have this, I don't know what it's called. Jacob got it. It like vibrates to wake me up on the bed, and it like changes the temperature. So it'll get really cold in the morning and it vibrates. And I go in the other room and I turn that alarm off and I put my headphones in and I start listening to my affirmations. And I just start my morning, wash my face, brush my teeth, make my morning cup of mud water. And I just sit down and I meditate from there, and then I journal. And that's usually how I start my day. So affirmations have always been such a huge potent like source for me changing my concept of myself and how I view myself. I used to have a really negative view of myself. I don't know why. I was a beautiful person. I was just years ago just not in the right mindset to speak kindly to myself. And through meditation, through yoga, through affirmations, that completely changed. And it can change for anyone. It just takes the time, it takes the repetition, it takes the practice. And so affirmations are a huge part of what I love to teach, as well as neuro-linguistic programming techniques. So, you know, things like seeing your life on a movie screen and walking people through certain moments in their past, if they're still going through a lot of different trauma that's come up in the past. And this is work that I would do either on live or one-on-one with a client that I've had in the past, but I've noticed how supportive it can be. So I might be making some more in the future where we kind of walk through screen by screen moments in the past and kind of coming in and reparenting yourself. That's a really big one that a lot of people need work with. So I don't know, there's so many avenues to dive into as a meditation teacher. So I kind of I don't like to necessarily say, oh, I specialize in this one thing, because I think each individual person's different and each time of life kind of calls for a different creation to be made, at least in my own life. So it's a fun journey to create and to bring them out and to hear from other people what they need. I've done theta healings in the past as well. Those have been really, really supportive for the collective and for people who've been on lives with me. Have you guys ever done theta healing at all?
Yeah.
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 What do you think of it?
I love it. I love everything that you just discussed. You just discussed my life. It really is, all of these practices. I absolutely love inner child work. I'm a big shadow work person as well. Theta healing. I love all of this kind of stuff, just peeling back those layers of programming. And there was something that jumped out at me when you said, I don't know why, but I was a nice person, but I had a really negative view of myself. And I think that is something so important for each person to go back and sort of go, hang on a second, where did these beliefs come from? And who told me this? And are those voices still relevant? Like, are they still voices that you want to listen to? And a lot of times it's like societal or familial or just in your environment. And so yeah, we really do get to choose. It's so powerful that we get to choose, go back and choose and sort of rewrite that programming and say, you know what, I was just a kid then, because a lot of this is between 0 and 3 or 0 and 7. And you get to go back and rewrite those beliefs. And I think that's so awesome. So I love that you're so deep into this work. It's such another point of connection for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely been a journey, and one that I was kind of afraid to dive into when I first started it, because I I don't think this now, because I really could care less what people think about me, but I used to care. And I used to be like, oh, what are people going to say about me doing this work? Like, I'm guiding people on these visualization journeys, and they're closing their eyes, and we're doing breath work, and I'm speaking light language. And it's just like, I just got past that because I realized how much it was impacting people by me showing up in this way. That I'm just going to keep doing it, and it's fun and I enjoy it. And yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful journey.
You're so good at it. You're so gifted. Yeah.
Wow, you're so gifted, and the work that you do is so important. And I really believe that it's the direction that we're heading in. The whole world is really starting to shift. That is everything that you just spoke about for me is so Aquarian age. It's exactly where we're heading. What people, I feel like it's a big part of what we've been missing. We both come from initially a very similar background with, the science and the medicine, and, even neurolinguistics programming really comes from the science. And then we get to integrate that as we learn with the spirituality. And, I feel like, and maybe this is through my experience, my lens of life, and still to this day, the whole world is so focused on science and facts. And now we're slowly shifting to yes, and now spiritual, now internal work, shadow work, healing. Like, our generations are finally starting to be like, what do you mean you don't have a therapist? Like, it's almost weird. Like, if you're not doing the work, then you have to be very selective with your therapist, but that's a whole other conversation in itself. But and I just think it's so important what you do. I would love for you to, because it caught my attention, because I know this is something that we have a lot that's also similar. The spiritual side of currency.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So I will say, before I met you, Corrine, and before I dove into like trading and investing in the space of IM, I was in another community where we sold Kangen machines, right? Really high quality, restructured water, high hydrogen water. And I was, for the first time in my life, surrounded by really spiritual people who were teaching concepts I had never heard of before. It just blew my mind open. They were giving me all of these nuggets of people to go listen to and books to read. And while I was also drinking this water, it was cleansing out a lot of things in my body and raising my vibration and allowing me to become more open to who I was supposed to be. So for me, that water and that experience with that community is what taught me a lot of the foundational principles and aspects that I now believe about money today, that I don't think I was necessarily taught growing up. I will just say, I lived a pretty comfortable life. Both my parents were in Western medicine. But they always taught me you got to work hard for money, and you gotta really, grind and push, and you have to take this white collar path, and you have to do this. And I love them so much, and I'm still so close with my parents, but I think that's what the path that they had seen was the only path to take. And so by me kind of branching off of it, I was doing something different. And I remember when I released this course, telling my mom and my dad, I was like, I released this course to Insight Timer. I've had a lot of people give me great, feedback on how I supported them, and I want to release this course, and here it is. And they were like, wow, you created a course. That's amazing. we never saw that coming. And it's about the spiritual side of currency, like nothing related to science or biology. I was like, well, it is tied to science. Like, and from my perspective, and I know you can say this too, Corrine, like the deeper I went into learning the intricacies of the human body and science and how it works, the more I believed in God and a higher power and a creator. And not just one that I think is right, right? But truly embodying and seeing how everyone's belief systems of this idea in our minds of what this creator is, how it's all true, right? So for me, it was like this period of life where I was like taking this other path, selling water machines, learning about money being energy, traveling to Hawaii, doing all these fun things that like my family was looking at me being like, what are you doing? Like you stepped away from your research job to do this. Like, what are you doing? Um, and I learned so much about it at that stage. I started attracting more money. I started to realize how money's not tied to just me giving my time. It's tied to how I'm feeling. Like the better I felt, the more I attracted, the worse I felt, crickets. Also, my relationship with money. So that was a huge period of time as well where I was in debt and I was putting myself into debt. And I know there's a lot of people in this world right now who have debt and they feel like the water's just like slowly creeping up over their head. And it can feel so like suffocating when you're in that state. But then you also have a choice to switch that and change that and perceive it in a different way and pull yourself out of it. So for me, like a big part of that course and creating the spiritual side of currency was to teach people that you don't have to see money this way anymore. Like here's a new way to see it. And let's see how that works for you instead. Let's focus on this instead of focusing on this. And honestly, the reviews that I still get from there's new students coming in like every day to that course still, and the reviews and the feedback I get from people, it's still impacting them. So I'm like, wow, like this is awesome. I'm glad you guys are really seeing the shift here. And I think for the first time, there's some people who are saying, like, I never saw money this way. I never saw it as energy. I never saw it as this flow that moves through, our bank accounts and banks and other things like so for me, it's always just been interesting to hear how people believe money, what it is, what they've been taught it is, and how those deeply ingrained beliefs impact how they're earning it or attracting it as an adult, whether they're not attracting enough or they're in scarcity. It's fascinating and it's kind of all tied together. Like physical health, our mental health, our emotional health, our spiritual health, and our financial health, they all tie together to make us become like the best version of us. So yeah.
Love that. I think when we really, really understand that money is energy, currency is energy, and really that our outer world is a reflection of our internal world. And everything that I just said is science. It's not wah wah loo woo woo weird stuff. It's literally science. We can just, and again, I think these are such Aquarian age themes where we're starting to step in the understanding of you don't have to work hard and grind and hustle and lose sleep over trying to make money. That's what I believe is a big trap that has been created in the current matrix. Let's leave it at that.
Yes.
And we really do get to shift so much of the way that we create money, attract money, and essentially live. Because, I feel like every time I teach this stuff, I don't want to use the word trigger, but like I poke the bear, which is good, which was what we're meant to do as coaches, to try and expand people's minds and make them face the maybe new thought patterns that they'd never thought before.
I love triggering people. I know that's probably not the best thing to say, but I love it because if you come from a place of love, it's a huge moment of growth for that person. And most people are afraid to kind of step on people's toes in that way. But I think it's such a powerful thing to do when you can trigger someone and be like, ooh, I see you were triggered by that. Like, let's rewind and go back and like, why? Like, what's coming up here? And holding that space for people, most people don't have it. So even just holding that space can be so healing for people. And you can know when to step back, because sometimes you can poke once and see how they respond. If they really don't like it, you're like, okay, I'm gonna honor your space here.
Exactly. Exactly. But yeah, it's just such an interesting topic. And again, I really, bringing it also back to crypto, I feel like this is what a big part of what crypto is allowing us to awaken to, and understanding that it isn't this physical thing that we need to hold. And literally, the scarcity mindset of putting money under your bed and storing it there for a rainy day. And we're shifting away from that and being able to actually see money as now even more energy, where it's stored on the blockchain and we can't physically hold it. It's in another realm, yet we get to just attract it and have it there, and it's still present, but in such a different way.
Yeah, yeah. What do you guys think of the memes, like meme coins and these smaller cap projects? I want to hear your opinion on those ones.
I
I
mean,
mean, I'm not super knowledgeable about or like really drawn to the memes, but I do think that they are a fascinating cultural phenomena.
Yeah.
And I do sort of like Elon Musk's take on these kind of things, because he's like, I always look for the most amusing outcome. Like that's the one.
Yeah.
And I kind of love that vibe, because I'm the same. Like I want to see the most ironic, funny, or kind of not just funny, but like fuck the system kind of
Yeah.
outcome. Do you know what I mean? Like, and how hilarious is it that these meme coins that do absolutely nothing have
Nothing.
really been able to attract value and interest. And I don't personally trade them. It's not like my zone of genius for sure. But some of these low cap projects, there are a couple of them that I'm looking deeper into. I'm also looking at the astrology of the project, that are really developing some really interesting things. And I think it's this like balance in crypto, because we all need to recognize, I think, that at this point in time in crypto, a lot of these projects, we're really trading hype and sentiment. And a lot of these projects are just a white paper, so an idea and some marketing. And at this point in the cycle, from a trading investing point of view, it's less about, do I think that this project can do what it says it can do? And it's more about, will this idea get other people excited to get on board with this? But so I don't love like that. I don't love to trade that way, but that's where we are in the evolution of digital assets. And but there are some very interesting smaller cap projects that are fascinating ideas that
Yeah.
really have the potential to shift and change the
Grow.
way we do things. I still definitely think that Bitcoin is the sort of foundational, is the real innovation, to be honest, because it's systemic innovation. And I think a lot of the cryptocurrencies on top, although they're great ideas, if we don't have that systemic innovation of coming back to hard sound money, this is a problem. Everything else is superficial on top of that then, so that's sort of the perspective that I come at it. But I love watching the meme coins. I mean, there's this one like dog with hat or something like that. They do
I was
absolutely
cracking
nothing.
up when
And
I
it's
saw
like,
that. It went
yeah.
from 7 cents to like $2. I was like, what is life?
It's hilarious. I don't I don't know how to trade these in a like, I'm a very like data driven trader, and so these kind of like, when I look at these charts, I'm just like, what do I even go off here? But they really are a cultural phenomena, and I find them super amusing. So I love that. What about you, Corinne? What do you think?
I think you just summarized it so well. For me, it's like I am really fascinated by the community side of things. Like there
Yeah.
are people that are like, they seem like ride or dies for these puppies. And I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
like, I get it. I love dogs. Like,
Yeah.
that's just super fascinating. But like, yeah, me too. I mean, I wish I had more time to entertainment because maybe with, stepping into our intuition, maybe we could make some great gains, and maybe find a really cool community in the meantime. But I can't put it in my priority list right now.
Yeah.
I think Grace nailed the what's the phrase? Nailed the
Nail on the head.
nail on the head. Yeah. It is fascinating, but it's also I don't know, it's fascinating for me to see other generations that are older witness this, because from
Mm.
their perspective, they're like, how is it possible that an 18-year-old could go in and buy a portion of this coin and make $1 million off of it when it took them maybe like a decade, 2 decades to get $1 million, you know? So I think from the generational side of things, like that's what fascinates me, like seeing other generations being like, well, wait a second, like how are these youngins getting access to these coins and making so much money here? Like they should be working hard. Like you should be going to work and doing the 9 to 5. So I don't know. I think from that standpoint, it's interesting, but also very comical.
Yeah, it's interesting as well to see the different generations kind of how they interact with crypto too, because like it was my nephew's 11th birthday this past
Oh.
weekend. And like he's super into gaming. If he was allowed, he would wear his Oculus like 24/7, I think. And that's like he would live in that world more than our world. But so that's definitely something that his parents monitor, is how much time he spends in the digital realm. But I thought it would be a really cute part of his birthday present. I bought him like this like gaming portfolio, like a portfolio of like these different gaming tokens. And he's so
That'd be
excited
fun.
by this. Like he was
Oh.
very much like excited to know when the latest games are coming out, and also very proudly telling his mom that he is an investor in the studios that are producing these games. So it's really fascinating. And I sort of was thinking about it as well in terms of, him at that age. He's a little older than this now, but like, when we were kids, it was really, you get your first interaction with money is like maybe a piggy bank, and you start to save
Mhm.
your birthday money or whatever it is, or your pocket money. And like I feel like that's wrong programming now. Like I don't want to teach
Yeah.
kids to be saving fiat in the,
Yeah. No,
we
really.
buy them a Trezor and we teach them about Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And they pick it up so quickly. Like my 11-year-old
Mhm.
nephew, he can explain to you what Bitcoin is and
That's
how it works,
awesome.
why it's necessary. You know what I mean? Whereas his parents are like, hang on a second, like what is going on with it? And then at the other end of the spectrum, just witnessing this within my family, like, my parents are baby boomers, and my mom, especially, she's always been super ahead, like, of technology and everything like that. But they deeply understand the current financial system and the system of central banking, and, have also been beneficiaries of that.
Mhm.
But because they have that deep understanding, like my mom understood Bitcoin and the need for Bitcoin really, really quickly. So it's
Mhm.
so sort of fascinating to see the way that the different generations are interacting and how we're
Yeah.
sort of shifting into this new world and taking
Yeah.
everyone with you. But
Yeah.
it's also like Bitcoin meets people where they're at. That's what I sort of feel anyway. And that's
Mhm.
really fascinating to watch. Have you experienced that? Have you sort of witnessed those sorts of things happening?
I would say so, as well as like with other chains too. Like for instance, Ethereum, Solana, a lot of people when they first hear about Bitcoin, they have no idea that there's two other massive chains in the world that have a huge share of the market cap here in crypto. So for them to then go into that space and be like, oh, Ethereum, and then there's NFTs, and then Solana has NFTs, and there's other projects built on it. It's like people start to slowly like widen their eyes to what this actually is. Bitcoin is obviously king and has started all of it, but to then witness, like, I've shown my dad things and my mom things, and they're just like, I don't even know how you do this. I don't understand how any of this works. They just buy a little bit of Bitcoin, a little bit of ETH because I told them to, and set up an auto transfer. And I'm like, that's all you need to know how to do. Because those are the most important things to know. I think if you're not someone who wants to follow it day to day like us, then have that auto transfer set up, and just like people used to do in the S&P 500, that was the safe investment back in the day. And while it still is, you don't get the same returns, I think, that you could compared to investing like $1,000 a month into Bitcoin or Ethereum over the span of 10 years. The returns just not the same at all. So yeah, like you said earlier, people are starting to speculate less about this. And it's interesting to see after the ETF has been approved, how many older folks are now realizing, oh, wait a second, maybe I should be putting my money in, but it's the worst time to put your money in. So that's why I'm like kind of curious to see what's going to happen in these next few weeks. Are people going to be burned right now, or are they going to be right? And we're going to keep seeing it expand and grow and grow and grow. I think it's going to keep growing, honestly. I don't think we're going to see massive pullbacks, at least for another couple of weeks.
No, I mean, we've discussed this so much on the episode as well, because like as a trader, I am like, this price action is unhealthy, to
It
be
is.
quite honest. And so it makes me like nervous, like,
Yeah.
but then sort of looking at the astrology, as I said, it's really looking very positive. And Corrine and I had a laugh at this, on this last episode, because someone said to me, why are you so surprised that all this expansion is happening? You literally were telling us this all last year. This is what 2024 is, the year of expansion. So it is interesting. Again, as a trader, we're always prepared for both sides. And that's really the best way to play it, I think. But there is just such an enormous amount of inflows coming into Bitcoin in particular. And so it's just fascinating to see. There is a part of me that feels like there will be some kind of like leverage shakeout. But if these inflows continue, even if we do get a few like nasty wicks to the downside, it's going to be very short-lived, and you have to have some limit orders in to sort of catch those if they even happen. So I mean, really exciting times, I think, like Bitcoin reaching all-time highs. We're so proud of Bitcoin, and and all the other the other sort of market participants that are like are offering different services. Like, I think that's the thing that is really a focus that I like to put out there, is like, just because I'm such a big believer in Bitcoin, I don't think Ethereum's going anywhere. I don't think Solana's going anywhere. They all serve different purposes, and they're building this alternate financial system and the infrastructure for this system. And they're all kind of needed and required. And it's so exciting to see those kind of things unfold. So we shall see. Sit tight, prepare for both sides, I think is the message, really. Expect expansion, but be prepared if there's some pullbacks that do happen, I guess.
Yeah, quick pullbacks.
Amazing. Well, Shelby, is there any last final message that you would love to share with everybody?
Ooh, well, I would just say, with this eclipse season coming up, start to dive into your own personal astrology. I think that can be really, really powerful as you go through eclipses. They're massive portals for transformation personally. And as we know, each individual makes up the market. So I think it's going to be a really interesting time. So one thing I would say, and one thing that I've learned from Molly McCord, who's a great astrologer that I've been listening to for years, is whenever an eclipse comes through, just take a moment to like pull up your chart, look at, you know, what house Libra is in your own chart. If you have any like specific planets or even transits moving through Libra, just take some time to look at that and dive a little bit deeper, because it's going to show you where this eclipse is probably going to work with you the strongest. And really just take some time to journal on that. I mean, we're still kind of in the energy of the new moon right now, with like, it's pretty like fertile for planting seeds. We're like getting out of it, but it's right there still. So I would say take some time to do that, and that'll be really, really powerful work to do. And yeah, just wishing everyone blessings as we head into this amazing, amazing lunar eclipse. I think it's going to be a crazy one. I think Bitcoin's going to get to like 6 figures, honestly. That's my prediction.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Around.
Where can people find you? Where can people find more about you and find your work?
Yeah, so I have my Instagram page, which is smala3333. There are 4 3s, not 3 3. That's like my personal page. And then I just started a brand new page called the Universal Bank, where I share like fun affirmations about abundance and fun reels. And I have a new meditation that's coming out on the equinox, March 19th, which is all about a specific meditation practice around kind of tapping into the frequency of abundance and what that feels like and what it means, and really going into the nuances of it over a span of like 21 days, really practicing the same practice over and over again so that you can feel the results of that. So that one is coming out the 19th, and you can find that at the Universal Bank on Instagram. And yeah, all my other links are tied into my Instagram page, so you can find my insight timer on there as well.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for being here, for sharing your
Yes,
knowledge, your wisdom, and your
you.
energy. It's always beautiful to
Thank you.
see.
You too. Thank you so much, ladies. This was so much fun. It was amazing.
Thank you so much. Peace, love, and Bitcoin.
Peace, love, and Bitcoin.